Good morning, everyone. My name is Valerie Edgeworth, and I am the Workforce and Adult Services Consultant here at the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. And today's webinar on becoming a GED Testing Center, we are really excited to have our presenters here with us today. We've got Natalie Cummins, who is our GED Administrator, here with us, and I'm going to let her introduce Scott from GED. Scott, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, so I'm just going to let you take care of that. And I don't want to waste any time. If you guys have any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat pod. Feel free to go ahead and type in your questions. And we are just going to go ahead and get started to allow maximum time for the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Yes, as Valerie said, my name is Natalie Cummins. I am now the GED Administrator for the state of Kentucky. And I have been in the Office of Adult Education, Kentucky Skills U, for about 4 years. I began my career in adult education over 20 years ago as a volunteer literacy tutor. And I have done many, many different jobs, including a lot of instruction in the classroom. I also am sneakily a bit of a librarian. I have a master's in library science from many years ago, but adult education kind of pulled me away, and that's where I really found my passion. However, I'm always excited to be able to connect the dots between adult education and library science and the value of libraries, because I really do believe that libraries have a central role to play in the mission of adult education. So I am going to allow Scott to introduce himself. He has so kindly agreed to be a part of this webinar. So Scott, can you just tell us who you are and what you do?
I can. Thanks, Natalie. So yeah, I'm Scott Salises. I'm with GED Testing Service. I'm based in Boston, just if people are interested to know where I am at a moment. I've been with GED Testing Service. I joined in 2011, which was at the start of a major change for the GED testing program for us, and that it was we started the move to computer, and then we introduced a brand new GED test in 2014. So I think I'm happy to be on this call. I think libraries are a terrific spot, if possible, to become GED testing centers. We have, I know there's a few libraries in Kentucky who are currently GED testing centers, and just to give you nationwide, I know in a number of states we have, one or more libraries in each state who are offer the GED testing. We're hoping to bring more on because we think it's a great location to have GED testing available. I'm sure students, you get questions sometimes maybe from individuals coming into your libraries who are trying to prepare for the GED test and maybe using computers at your library, or maybe checking out GED preparation books, whatever it is. I just think it's a great spot to have GED testing. So, yeah,
I agree, Scott, and thank you again for being on the call, because I know you do have a lot of demands on your time. A little bit more background on libraries and adult education in Kentucky. I know from having been in the field, I taught the bulk of my teaching career was spent in Jessamine County, which, for those of you who are maybe not familiar, is just south of Lexington. And I am aware from that time, as well as from being at the state level, that there are many adult education programs that offer classes, adult education classes in the library, and those common rooms that they can use. And as a reminder, GED education and adult education in Kentucky is offered free of charge. So I'm going to go through for the learning objectives for today's webinar are primarily to give. I'm going to give a little bit more background on the GED test. My predecessor, Ray Smith, did a lot of this in a webinar back in October. That was one of the last things that she did before she transitioned to a new position at the beginning of November. And I believe that that webinar might be archived somewhere where you all, it is, Valerie is nodding, that webinar is accessible. That webinar went into great depth about what is the GED test and what are the subjects and what is the structure of it, and so on. This morning is not devoted to that. It is more devoted to the practical step of where can people take the test and how libraries can fit into that equation. As we go along, Valerie mentioned this. If you have questions, please type them into the chat, and we will do our best to address those as they come along. Oh, thank you, Valerie, for posting that link in the chat to that archived webinar. That's great. So a little bit of quick summary. The GED test, I didn't put this on the slide, but the GED test itself has been around for decades. I don't remember the exact date. I believe it was in the 1940s. It was designed first for those who were returning from World War II, who had to stop their high school education, and then they were coming back and they needed a credential. It has gone through several iterations, several new versions that have aligned with the advances in education in general. The test has become much more aligned with what a high school education is like now. It is standards-based, so it is a good indication of where somebody is in terms of high school equivalency. Scott alluded to 2011 when he started, that the test began to go through some changes then. It started to become more it was available computer-based, and then in 2014, the test moved to computer-based almost exclusively. This is different from online. It is not an online assessment. It is computer-based in as much as it is more or less downloaded, and then people take the test, and then it is those results are uploaded through a server. The technical parts of that are, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but it's all available on a website, which I'm going to get to in just a second. The test is 4 sections: reasoning through language arts, science, social studies, and mathematics. And each of these tests, subject tests, may be taken on a separate date. There's no requirement for somebody to take all the sections of the test in one day. In fact, most adult education programs really recommend that folks do not take the test all in one day, because the complete exam is about 7.5 hours, which is a lot to do in one day. That's why we do recommend through our adult education programs to just kind of take it piece by piece. Kentucky is a state that requires passing the GED Ready practice test before folks can move on to the real test or the operational test. That Ready test is a very good indication of how prepared a person is before they take the actual assessment. The Ready test is delivered online, and this is another way, sidebar, where libraries can help out with access to computers. I am aware of some students who have taken Ready exams at a library because they don't have access to a computer at home, but most of our students will have access to computers at a learning center, an adult education or skills U learning center, which exists all over the state of Kentucky. When they go through a skills U learning center, they can take that GED Ready test for free. The normal cost is usually $6 per section. And again, there's a corresponding Ready test for every subject test. So that's a $24 value that students can get through our learning centers for free and take that Ready test and then qualify to take the actual exam. I mentioned that there's learning centers all over the state. We do have access to adult education services in all 120 counties throughout Kentucky, and some of these learning centers partner very, very closely with their libraries and in fact use libraries as a sort of connection point to get their the information about their services out to the wider community. It's a good way that we can all pool together our resources so that we can have maximum impact on a population that we are likely all serving together. One of the more exciting things that has happened literally in just the last week, if you might have noticed in the news that there was a press conference at the Capitol a week ago yesterday where Governor Beshear announced that there will be free first-time GED testing available across the state. I actually was there at that conference. They just didn't show me for some reason. I don't know why. I was just in the back. We have allocated these funds for first-time testers anywhere across the state. Again, this is the first-time testing, so it allows a person to take the test, each of the 4 subjects, for free the first time. And as with any other testing situation, a person can use this promo code to test for free 1 subject at a time. They do not have to take the whole test at one time. They can just go through section by section, which really, I think, does improve the chances of success. All right. Moving on now to testing. So right now, there are currently about 56 GED testing centers across Kentucky that serve folks who are not incarcerated. We have other centers, other testing facilities available in state prisons, in some of the detention centers, and then also through mobile labs that are operated through local Skills U programs. These mobile labs are just for testing. They are not for education purposes. They just go out to areas as needed in order to deliver the GED test in situations where a fixed center is not feasible or not available. And when I say fixed center, I mean, I think pretty much the picture that you have. It's a room with computers. It's a physical setup that aligns with the requirements of PearsonVue for delivering testing. While we do have about 50 centers around the state, plus several, I will say several mobile testing units, this is really not enough. And that's why I'm here. There are geographic pockets in Kentucky with really no convenient access to testing where if a student is in that area, then they might have to travel an hour and a half, 2 hours to access testing, and the testing center where they're going or where they're trying to schedule might have other demands on its time. There are testing centers around the state that do not they deliver the GED exam, but they do not deliver just the GED. So those seats can be used for other tests. So there is a need to improve access to testing geographically speaking. For example, in West Kentucky, West Kentucky has broad areas where there is no testing. Some parts of northern Kentucky, like the area between extreme northern Kentucky and central Kentucky, and south central, and then east Kentucky, those geographic areas really could use some extra boost as far as testing access. That is also to say that there are densely populated areas that need more access to testing, specifically Jefferson County. if there's anybody from Jefferson County Public Library on the call, please feel free to speak up in the the chat, and I will be connecting with you all to see what we can do. Fayette County could probably use some more testing access as well. If you think about our densely populated areas, usually we need more access to testing. So there's a question, is there a list of all the current testing centers? Yes, and actually better than that, there is a map that I am working on to get put together. I have an old map that is not current, but I am working on getting the map updated with the testing availability so that I can get that out to you. Okay? Great. Good question. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now you might wonder, well, okay, there's a need for some extra testing, but what are some other potential benefits to my library making the investment in becoming a testing center? Well, these are some benefits that I brainstormed that were then backed up by the testing centers that I spoke with that are already in libraries. You do have the opportunity to drive more traffic to your library. I understand from my background that libraries survive by the number of people who use them. So the more people you can get in the door, the more people you get improving your circulation numbers, the better. This is a valuable community service. It's the sort of thing that if somebody can get their GED, can get their high school equivalency, then that opens up opportunities for them to get better employment, to go on to post-secondary, which Kentucky Skills U Adult Education, we have a close collaboration with the community and technical college system here in the state. So we do work very hard to make our students aware of other opportunities after they get their GED. And we always talk about the role of libraries in improving a person's, knowledge and education. Your part in this can also help to raise that awareness further by understanding that libraries help to further the education of the community and they stimulate the economy. If folks in your community are more educated, they are more likely to be better employed and therefore better able to buy things, contribute to the tax base, which is something that a Chamber of Commerce, for example, always likes to hear. And then undoubtedly, and I know this for a fact that there are online services, but you probably also have physical media for preparing for the GED. And you can help to promote the use of those preparation materials if folks know that there is on-site testing available. Okay. Now, I'm going to move into the section where I'm going to let Scott start doing some of the talking as well. Just as a refresher, as a refresher, pearsonvue became a partner in the delivery of the GED test, beginning with the 2014 test. And Scott, would you like to talk some more about that collaboration?
Yeah, so pearsonvue is our technology partner. So in other words, pearsonvue has the platforms to deliver the GED test on computer. So in order to become to deliver the GED test on computer, you have to go through and become what we call an authorized pearsonvue testing center. So we're going to talk more about this, but it starts with a brief online application that you would fill out and submit. It doesn't take long at all. And that gets the ball rolling, and then somebody from pearsonvue will be in touch with the next steps, which we'll talk more about. So I guess that's the easiest way to think about it is, pearsonvue is our technology partner and having the platforms to deliver the test on computer.
Right, right. So I think, Scott, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first step to go to
Correct.
this website.
Yes, that's a great link to start with. Gives a lot of good information about becoming a GED Testing Center. And it will link you there. Yep. That's that initial application I mentioned there, and that getting started. There's a hyperlink to that. It's brief. It's just, I think, some basic information they want. And then once you submit that, essentially, just to give you a little behind the scenes, a request will come to me, and it will say, such and such library has requested permission to, they're applying to become an authorized pearsonvue testing center, and they want to deliver the GED test. I check with Natalie. Natalie would approve that, and then the process would move along with pearsonvue working with you on what the next steps are, and I can talk more about that.
Okay, great. Yeah. I see that somebody was typing.
Susan, I will do that right now. I got you.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great to put that link in there.
Thank you, Valerie. Awesome. And I'm going to vamp for a couple of seconds here while Pam appears to be typing. So, yeah, as Scott mentioned, he gets the request, and then he'll check with me. Generally, I've been hearing about programs about libraries who are interested in becoming testing centers. So I will, Pam says, we have an adult ed center in our county. Would we still be able to be a testing center? Yeah, Pam, that's if you can specify what county, that would be helpful.
Rockcastle.
It's Rockcastle. Well, yeah, Rockcastle County, let me see here. Yeah. There is a difference between, you don't have a testing center right now in Rockcastle. You do have adult education because there is adult education available in all the counties. A lot of adult education centers in the state do not deliver the GED exam. Adult education centers have, not to get into too many weeds, but we have a separate stream of combined federal and state money that mandates that money be used to provide instruction for the GED, as well as instruction for academic remediation, English as a second language, workforce preparation. I won't bore you with Title II of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, but that money cannot be used to for local programs to deliver the assessment. They have to find other sources of money to do that. So that's why, yeah, oh, you have a center of some sort that is separate from the school system's adult ed center. Yeah, in Rockcastle, you have your adult education program is part, I believe you're part of the consortium that is around Cumberland schools. So if you have a center, like a testing center maybe, I don't know. That's something that we can look into separately if you'd like to chat with me offline about that. But I do believe, yeah, I do believe that it would be fine. We can, my contact information will be in this webinar, Pam, so I'd be more than happy to talk with you separately about this so that we can tease out which center it is that you're talking about. Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on, and this next slide, Scott mentioned that Pearson is the technology partner on this, and when you go to the website, you will see these basically there's a whole bunch of links that you can go to. You can look at the technical requirements and the facility requirements. Scott, would you like to give just a brief overview of what they look for in a Pearson testing site?
Yeah, so these you definitely want to take a look at these two documents. So the technical requirements document, I would recommend if you have an IT person on staff or who helps you, for them to take a look at the technical requirements. We don't require the latest and greatest of everything, but certainly I think somebody with who's in IT should take a look at the technical requirements who would know your computer software. In terms of let me talk briefly about the facility. So I guess what we're looking for in a facility to become a GED testing center. So we're looking for an enclosed room. In other words, a room that has walls around it. It's not just in an open area. So we're looking for an enclosed room that's a quiet environment where people would take the GED test. Outside of the room, the other requirement would be you need to have somewhere we call a check-in station. So in other words, when somebody comes to take the GED test, there's a brief process before you actually take them into test. They come in, they'll have to present a valid government-issued identification. You will actually take a digital photo of them, and they will sign a digital signature pad. So there's a little bit of back and forth there, a little conversation before you actually take them into test. So once you do that, then you would bring them into the testing room. We need to have the check-in station, as we call it, outside of the testing room because, again, it would be a little bit distracting if it was in the testing room, given there's a little bit of conversation going on, et cetera, et cetera. Also, test takers are not allowed to essentially bring anything into the testing room. They can't bring a backpack or phone or anything else. It's all prohibited items. Obviously, the phone could clearly be used to try and cheat. So everything has to be left outside of the testing room. And then, of course, you just bring them in. You would seat them at the computer, at one of the computers available, and they would begin testing. In terms of the technical requirements, I'm not going to go into those too deeply. Just really what we're looking for is desktop computers to be utilized for testing. We do allow laptop computers for the GED test as long as they're of a certain size. But the technical requirements will really detail, what is required from a technical standpoint in terms of delivery.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much. That actually was, that's also useful for me to hear all that again as well. Pam, I do want to address, you put another comment there in the chat that it puts your library out of being a test center. I'm always happy to chat with you some more about that. I would like to point out that where Rockcastle is actually in the best place for not having a testing center right there. You do have Jackson right next door that has a center coincidentally in its library, and then Laurel just to the south and Pulaski just to the south. They have 6 testing centers as well as Madison just to the north of you. So there's pretty good coverage around you. But if there's the ability to have testing in Rockcastle, that's definitely something that we could still talk about. There are questions here about would a Chromebook be good for testing? Scott, I don't know the answer to that question.
So if you're utilizing laptops, the screen of the laptop, it has to be 15.6 inches or larger. And I believe that's, you measure it diagonally across.
Okay.
The reason for that is that if the screen is not above a certain size, the GED test will not display correctly.
Right.
That is the reason for it. It's just it would just not display correctly, and obviously it could be a problem for somebody taking the test if the test was not displayed properly on the screen.
Okay. And are those requirements listed in that those technology requirements document?
Yeah. So all of the technical requirements are listed there. Just a couple things to note here. In that technical requirements document, it will say laptops are not allowed. I don't want to go into the weeds too much here, but other testing providers, meaning other standardized tests, often do not allow laptops to be utilized. We, the GED Testing Service, do allow laptops to be utilized. So the details on laptops are actually described in a document we call our mobile testing document, which I can probably put the link in right now, actually, to that.
And Melissa's got a good follow-up comment on the technical requirement questions.
So ultimately, yeah, we could use just attach a larger. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
That's a great idea.
And the mobile testing guidelines, they're on that same page. I'll put the link in. It's that same page we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, when you go to that that main link and you look at that on the web, you will see several squares of information to go to. And there it is. Thank you. All right, good.
And we're happy to work with you as well. I mean, if you think, well, maybe this type of our facility setup will work, or maybe it won't, or could we make adjustments that it would be allowable? I mean, we're happy to work with you on these things as well. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Before you something comes up and you think, well, that's a big obstacle, we might not be able to do it. At least run it by us and see if it's something we can solve.
I think that's a good rule of life. Run it by us and see if it's something we can solve. Okay. Great. I'm going to move on. I mentioned that there are a few libraries, and Scott did too, that already offer library-based testing. These are Bourbon, Edmondson, and Jackson. I spoke with all of these libraries earlier this week and last week about their experience, and mentioned that I was doing this webinar, and all of them are very happy to talk about their test center experience with anybody who is interested in getting, possibly doing this. They, especially Mark, when I talked with him, Mark is at Bourbon County. He started this, I believe they got into this testing center situation a few years ago. So they've been doing it for a while, and overwhelmingly it's been a very positive move for them. They are very happy to do it, and they realize that they have a direct impact within their community.
On occasion, sometimes we'll have multiple libraries come together and discuss a certain topic, and I'm thinking it might be good if I talk with the staff with each of these three libraries, and maybe we could do another training and let them give Library Land an overview of that experience and why it's been good for their community. So I will get started on that, and maybe we can have another webinar for those, just that give you a chance to ask questions and hear their personal experience. So I'll get started on that for you all too.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah,
Thank you
we'll
so much.
Yeah. Great.
And just as an example, here's some of the feedback that they gave me, some direct quotes. They said it gives us better standing in the community. It helps the public see us in a very positive light. It was good PR, and it helps connect the library to the business community. So those are just some of the positive statements that they had. So
yeah, it is really tied, as you said, Natalie, at the beginning. I mean, one of the key things is, tied to economic development and getting people upskilled and, getting people to get that high school credential, which will often lead to them going on to some type of post-secondary or maybe a job promotion or a new job. But it's all the stuff we hear about with, the more education, the difference between having a high school credential and not having a high school credential certainly can make a significant difference in the amount of money that people earn, and then obviously it can be a bigger step going on to get some type of additional certificate or associates or more.
Right, and that's something that we have a fact sheet from Kentucky Skills U that I will have Valerie. Can I have you send something out to people? Okay.
We can attach documents to our website where the recording will be available, so that anybody accessing the webinar at a later date will also have access to any of those documents.
Wonderful.
We can put that map there and anything else you want to. So yes, definitely.
Because I believe, Scott, the number that I've heard is that it's about $9,000 more per year that a GED recipient can get versus somebody without a high school credential. So it has a very definite impact on people's lives, and that's the mission of adult education right there. We are all about upskilling folks, getting them ready for jobs, for college, for being better parents, better members of the community. That's what adult education and Kentucky Skills U is all about. And libraries too, I think. All right. This is the formal Q&A part of the session. Are there any other questions out there that we might be able to address right now? I'll give you all a few seconds to type.
Can I give just a brief overview for those in terms of what the process would be like to go through and become a authorized testing center? I'm just going to hit on the high points of it. I just think it might be helpful for people to hear kind of the linear path of what happens.
Please do, yes.
Sure. So as I said, the first step would be to fill out that brief online application. Once you do that, and as we talked about, notifications over to me, and then I'll talk with Natalie, and then all likelihood you would be approved to move forward. At that point, you'd be working with somebody from pearsonvue, and there would be two main first steps that they would need two things they'd need from you. One, there's an agreement that you or somebody at your library or district would need to sign. It's essentially a software licensing agreement. That's what you'll be downloading, would be the software to deliver the test. The other thing they will require is digital photos. So they're specific about what they're looking for, but they'll require a number of digital photos from you of your testing center, proposed testing center setup. So nobody from pearsonvue is going to come out on site and inspect your center. They're going to require these digital photos in order to make sure that you're complying with the facility requirements. So once you sign the agreement and once those photos were submitted and approved, you would then move into downloading the actual software that will deliver the test on computer. So you'd be downloading it onto the machines that'll be used for testing, and there's also be an administrator computer. That's where you would do the check-in, and that's where you would do the check-in, and somebody on your staff side would have access to that. You definitely want somebody on your IT team to help with that software installation. And then once you did the software installation, essentially one or more individuals at your library would need to take and pass the proctor certification exam. So it's an online test that will be delivered through the pearsonvue software. And it's just you're demonstrating that you know how to utilize the software to admit somebody to do testing, to file an incident report if something inevitably little things come up that need to be transmitted or mentioned to view in terms of minor incidents. Once you have at least one person who is certified as a proctor, I'd recommend having at least one backup, and it's up to you as to in terms of who the proctors are. We have fairly minimal requirements for what a proctor needs to be. Ultimately, you decide on that, again, which is meeting this minimum requirements. And then once you do that, really the last step would be you would set your testing hours. So that means that you would go in and use the pearsonvue software, and you would say, we're going to be open these days from 9 to whatever it is, whatever time. And then once you do that, essentially, the switch would be flipped, or the button would be pressed, essentially, on our end. And when people are signing up for the GED test in your area, they would see your library as an available testing site based on the testing hours that you have put in. That's a high level of the process.
That is awesome, Scott. Thank you so much. We've got a few questions here in the chat, and Perry, you've asked about having access to both the current map and the old map alongside. I was a bit vague in how I described the new map. When I say new map, it's mostly that I have an old paper copy of an old map that is not available in electronic form anymore. So I'm recreating the map with I'm trying to make it a better document to show where our testing is. But yes, once that's available, I have no problem with sharing that, as long as folks understand that it is a document that is likely to change, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, not letting me to cut you off. I was just going to say if anyone wants to go to GED.com, you can, if you go to at the top about the test and then scheduling, you could, if you wanted to, you can click see where I can test. You can put in your zip code, and it'll show you the testing centers that are closest to you. I know Natalie's working on a full state map, but if you just want to see testing centers that may be near you or how far the closest testing center is, you can do so on GED.com.
That's great. Yes, I forgot about that. There is a question here from Stephanie. Are there fees associated with being approved by Pearson?
So there's no fees that you would pay to Pearson. I'll talk about there is some cost you will incur initially. I'll talk about that in 1 minute. So there's no fees. There's no fees to become an authorized center, or there's no annual fee. The only, assuming your setup is ready to go or closely ready to go, but the only cost really I can guarantee you to become a GED testing center is you have to purchase a security package. The security package is 2 digital cameras and a digital signature pad. As I said, when people are coming into test, you'll be taking a digital photo of them, and they will be signing their name using the digital signature pad, and one of the cameras is simply a backup. You can purchase this security package from pearsonvue if you want to. I think they give you a little camera stand as well, and they package it all up and send it out to you. It is $450. You do not have to purchase through pearsonvue. In the technical requirements, the model numbers of the digital camera and signature pad are shown. So you just need to purchase that specific model number. But if you want to purchase them from Amazon or anywhere else and you find them for a lesser cost, you can certainly do that. So that's the only cost I can tell you that you would have up front, would be that security package. Other than that, again, there's no annual cost. You would receive test center compensation. Mm-hmm. So for the GED test, the easiest way to think about it is it's $5 per scheduled hour. So if somebody was to take the entire GED test at your center, it's approximately $40 that would be coming back to you on a monthly basis. So each month you would receive payment in terms of this test center compensation for the total amount of testing hours that were delivered the month prior. So there is some test center compensation coming back to your library.
Right, and I think that you have answered Susan's question that's a little bit further up. I would like to know what the cost is to the library, licenses or supplies. So I think you've answered that question. Susan,
Yeah.
if you need more, let us know. There's a question here about, could you please explain the difference between a testing center and a mobile testing center?
Sure.
Yeah, you go ahead and take a stab at it. I think I know, but I'm going to let you talk.
Okay, so yeah, so a testing center, sometimes referred to as a fixed site, would be, I'm just going to use an example at a community college where they have a testing center and they're open, whatever, four or 5 days per week. So, it's a fixed location. I mean, it's always in the same location on campus. Right. A mobile testing center would be a couple different examples here. I mean, one example of how mobile testing is used is sometimes local jails. So sometimes a local community college or other provider will go into a local jail to do the testing. Sometimes oftentimes it works a little bit differently. But basically, say in an example, a local community college is going into a local jail to deliver the testing. So somebody from the local college is going in to proctor the exam. Maybe they're using laptops or desktops, or potentially they could be bringing in the laptops to deliver the testing. But essentially, mobile testing can be done anywhere. In other words, it's not a fixed location where it's always going to be there. It might be doing testing in a church basement. You decide that, okay, once a month we're going to do this set up this mobile testing in a church basement. And then once we finish that day, we're going to pack everything up and go. It's not a fixed location that will always be there. Maybe next time, they're doing it at a different location. So I guess that's the basic difference between a fixed testing center and then a mobile site, which can essentially go anywhere in terms of mobile testing.
Yeah. And to reiterate, I said earlier in the broadcast that there are learning centers or adult education programs, I should say adult ed programs in the state who operate mobile testing centers, often, like Scott said, to go into jails, but also just sometimes just to go to other locations where testing is needed more on an ad hoc basis. The other question here, for the current libraries that are testing, how many times per year do they test? I had that information. It's not in front of me, but I can tell you that they test at least once a month, if not every week or every couple of weeks. Maybe just for a few hours at a time, but it is a fairly regular thing. You might want to contact them directly as well to find out how often that they are testing. And I do know, Scott, you had mentioned the recommendation to have at least one other proctor trained at the library. I believe Mark at Bourbon County said that they have 6 people who are trained as proctors, so they have very excellent coverage in case of vacation or illness or anything like that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I would say a minimum you'd want of 2, and if you have more than that, fabulous.
Right. There's a question here from Melissa. If we establish a set schedule, say the first and third Thursday, what happens if the internet is down or the library is closed that interferes with the regular schedule? Now, I do know that I've seen incident reports come through from GED Testing Service that, if the internet is down, you can report that. And Scott, I know that you field this all the time, so feel free to jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just if you were having if you had testing scheduled and, there were people scheduled to come in and, whether the day before or sometime in advance, something happened where the internet was down or there was some other issue, that's when you would get in touch with our test center support line, and essentially they would take it from there in terms of they would work to reschedule they would contact test takers and work to reschedule them. So really, the main point is you'd be working with our test center support line if something like that does happen.
Right.
Weather, things with weather sometimes can cause closing, random power outages, things like that. I mean, you'd work with our test center support line, and they would do the contacting and rescheduling of the test takers if you had people scheduled that day.
Very
If nobody
good.
was scheduled, then it would be very easy just to close the testing for that day if there's nobody scheduled.
That's true. There's a question here, does the testing facility have to be open a minimum number of hours per week? Scott, I don't believe so, but you tell me.
So, well, it segues into so I just want to make this point. I haven't mentioned it yet. So when you apply, if for those of you that are considering this and who might move forward, when you're applying to become a pearsonvue testing center, there's two options for you in terms of what tests you deliver. So pearsonvue, in addition to delivering the GED test on their platform, delivers many other computer-based certification exams. So, I mean, you basically think of an industry, and there's certification exams, I'm sure, for that industry. So you have the option of becoming what we call a GED-only pearsonvue center, and that means you're just offering the GED test. The other option is, if you want to, you can offer the GED test and other certification exams offered through pearsonvue. I know they offer a lot of various IT exams and others as well. There may be Kentucky-specific exams that are offered. So that is entirely up to you in terms of what you want to do, whether you just say, we just want to focus on the GED test, or, we would actually maybe we want to drive more traffic to the library and we want to deliver the GED test and other exams offered through pearsonvue. Totally up to you what you decide there. You can be GED only, or you can talk with you and work with you on offering other exams as well. Just a couple things there. If you are GED only, the requirements to become a center are slightly easier, shall I say. And really the main differences are these. It's not all that different, but if you're just offering a GED test, you can use laptops. As I was saying, if you wanted to offer the full suite of pearsonvue tests, you would need to be utilizing desktops.
Okay.
If you're GED only as well, you don't have to have lockers or lockable storage. So in other words, when somebody gives in the test, as I said earlier, they can't bring anything into the testing room. So, a pocketbook, wallet, keys, phone, all of that has to be stored outside. So ideally, you would want some type of lockable storage to do that, just so people feel comfortable leaving their belongings behind. If you're offering the full suite of pearsonvue tests, you would need to have lockers, some type of lockers there. If you're just offering the GED test, we don't require that. We recommend you have some type of lockable storage, but it's not required.
Okay, good. Good to know.
And also, last thing, with the GED test, if you're just offering the GED test, there are no minimum hours you need to be open. If you're offering other pearsonvue tests, they like you to be open at least 8 hours per week.
Okay. Good.
And I won't say they hold you to that hard and fast, but that's kind of their guideline.
Okay.
So some centers will say, well, we'd like to start with just offering the GED test. Maybe in the future we would considering adding other certification exams. But I hear that a lot, where people will say, we'd like to start with the GED test, see how that goes, and go from there.
That makes a lot of sense. Susan had a question, do people make appointments to take the test, or do they drop in? They do not drop in. You do have to schedule taking the GED test ahead of time, and the scheduling for the GED test is done through a student's GED.com account. They create a My GED account, and that account tracks all of it's how they can select their testing center where they want to go take the test, or where they can go take the test. So that is done online. So you should never have a drop-in for a GED exam. Susan,
Nor do you have to collect, nor do you guys collect the money. We collect the payment.
Yeah. You've got a lot of questions. I like that. Before we apply, would you recommend we reach out to other, you're in McCracken. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. We do have some testing in McCracken, but I am always happy to talk about the test footprint. You can talk with me, and then I can coordinate with talking with the local adult ed centers, because I know that we don't want to create too much saturation of testing, but on the other hand, I really don't think that we are very close to being saturated in terms of testing availability. There is a need, honestly, especially in Carlisle and Graves counties, which are right next to McCracken. There's a definite need for testing there. And if offering on Saturdays might be helpful, yes. I think Saturday testing is something that is lacking quite a bit around here. Because I've been compiling from the test centers that we have, I've been compiling a spreadsheet of the days and times that they're open, and overwhelmingly it is Monday through Friday, one or two, or all of those days. Not very often do we have Saturday testing.
Saturdays would be great. I'll just echo that. Always helpful for those who might be, students, GED test takers who are working on a 9-to-5 schedule.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing, Susan, the center in McCracken offers more than just the GED exam. It is based at the college, so it offers all of those. It serves as the testing center for the college as well. Pam, you're open on Saturday, but for only half. Well, I understand that. And Pam, you and I think we can talk more later, because you're in Rockcastle, to see if there's a need there. But I'd be happy to discuss that further with you.
Any hours on a Saturday would be fantastic.
Right. Scott, I think the longest GED subject exam is the reasoning through language arts, and that's like about 2 hours at the most.
Yeah, so reasoning through language arts, they have about 2.5 hours to take that. There's the total testing time, 150 minutes.
Yeah, that is that's a whopper.
Evening hours are great as well.
Yeah. So Susan, you brought up a really good point that the college, which is West Kentucky Community and Technical College, is a schlep. Love that word, by the way, from the location downtown. Yeah. Transportation is often cited as a barrier for our population. They might be able to get to the store once a week, but that sometimes they got to think about their gas money. They got to think about all these things, and we know with our population that like if you or I had a flat tire, we would be late for work. But for our population, if they have a flat tire, it could put them out of commission for a week or 2 weeks. So better access geographically is a good thing. Evening hours, sure. I think evening access is also a good thing. There are some counties or some testing centers that do offer some evening testing, but not a lot.
Yeah, anything outside of standard business hours is welcomed, certainly.
Right? That goes for our adult education providers as well. Although I know that a lot of our adult ed providers do offer evening classes at least a couple times a week, and some of them have started doing Saturday instruction as well. I think we are getting close to the
We
time
are.
on this,
If there are no other questions at this point, are we slide-wise, we're good?
yeah.
Okay.
All I've got, oh, Melissa has if we establish a set schedule, Melissa, I think you asked that question already. Oh, and I skipped, never mind.
That's all right, we're good. Natalie's contact information is here, and I would be happy at any point in time to share that via email if for some reason the recording or anything's not working for you. Just to close out here, want to thank Natalie and Scott again. This has been hugely informative for me as well as our attendees, and looking forward to people viewing this as an archived webinar as well. We want to give a quick shout out to the Institute for Museum and Library Services for sponsoring this webinar in part today. Again, the handouts are available there. I've got the archived webinars page linked here where you can access this training, and within the next week we will have this recording made available there, as well as the webinar from October that Natalie mentioned earlier, as well as many other topics that we record. If you're not following us on social media, we encourage you to go ahead and do so. And I am going to go ahead and open up the survey link, so a window will open up on all the participants' windows. If you could go ahead and fill that survey out, these survey responses are crucial to our continued funding, and we are grateful for the feedback that you all give us on a regular basis. We are happy to hang around if there's any other questions for a couple minutes. If not, we hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again on another webinar real soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Let us know. We're here to help if you have follow-up questions. So.
Yes, absolutely.